had died.
Oh, I made it on the air.
Wow. Ooh, that's a little rough out of context.
It's a good way to kind of a dark way to start.
What's up, everyone? This is Jason Tucker, and this is WP Watercooler, episode number 268. We don't have a topic, right? We've changed formats. We don't have a topic. We're gonna explore a few topics. We've been talking about them during the pre-show. Let's go around the room real quick, get everyone introduced. Dan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Dan Walmsley. I am a code wrangler at Automatic. I work on a lot of different things, Jetpack and sort of site performance stuff and analytics around growth and product usage and partnerships, and yeah, lots of different things in classic Automatic fashion.
Awesome. Good to have you on.
Thanks.
How about you, Mr. Cosper? Tell us a bit about yourself.
Hey, I'm Jason Cosper, and you're not. I am the senior performance engineer at oh wow, I almost said my own.
You almost said it.
Liquid Web. Snap. Sorry, Chris. I'm the senior performance engineer at Liquid Web, and yeah, I'm going to stop talking now before I say anything else.
Hey, at least you didn't say like one of your other jobs that you had from even further back, right? That would have been that would have been really crazy. Russ, how about you? Web Dev Studios and whatnot.
Hey, what's up? I'm Russ. I'm the lock adder and bagel cream cheese spreader over at WDS. I just do WordPress support, man, and I'm excited to see what topics we have for today, man.
Awesome. Good to have you on. Steve, so who are we killing today?
I am. Wow. Sometimes so there's the things that should remain up here. I'm Steve Zehngut. I'm the founder of Zeek Interactive. I run the OC WordPress meetup, and I'm also the lead organizer of WordCamp Orange County, which is coming up on June 9th and 10th.
Awesome, man. I'm Jason Tucker. You can find me at Jason Tucker on Twitter. My website is jasontucker.blog, and I do another show on WP Watercooler's network called WP Blab. We do those on Thursdays. We talk about social media stuff. And we actually did a post just recently for a call for experts. You know, I'm.
Why am I on?
No, but I put out a post saying, "Hey, I'm looking for awesome folks that are social media and marketers and those types of folks that typically don't get to speak about these sorts of things with WordPress, and have them come on the show and really talk about how they're using that with WordPress and whatnot." So feel free to go take a look at that over on our website.
One more quick plug. Today is the last day to submit a speaking session for WordCamp Orange County. So if you haven't done it yet and you don't do it by midnight tonight, you're SOL. You can look up the acronym if you don't know what that stands for.
Is that the question? The first question on the thing is, what
are
is
you
SOL?
That's it.
So during the pre-show, we were kind of discussing a few different topics to kind of get this figured out. One of them was Gutenberg. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about some of that? Maybe we can jump around between that and the other topic we're coming up with.
Also, there's a G topic,
right? There's a bunch of changes within Gutenberg, having the back end kind of infrastructure of Gutenberg has been kind of updated and had made some changes, and have been new updates have been pushed out for that. What have you guys heard about that, and how are you feeling about it? You don't have much. I mean, I had my first real world experience with Gutenberg today, or so rather yesterday, with writing a call for experts and just kind of digging through how that works, and very interesting stuff. I mean, even looking through some of the things that that were discussed on WP Tavern regarding it, just kind of seeing how blocks randomly appear and different things disappear and that sort of stuff. But all in all, it's the markup is there, and things are working well once the Gutenberg comments and all those things that are wrapping around the text works. I'm still not 100% sure yet.
I am seeing people, releasing products already around Gutenberg. I got an announcement that Organic Themes actually has a theme called Block, which is a Gutenberg-ready theme. Yep.
Organic Themes, huh?
Yep. Here, I'll post a link.
So one thing that I just started playing with is being able to share like nested blocks. I was actually kind of worried that you couldn't do that before, and with one of the latest change logs, like that's something where now we can share it across multiple screens and not have to keep rebuilding it. So like that's the biggest thing for me so far.
Sweet. Yeah, that's cool.
It seems to me like with Gutenberg, like there's a lot of things going on simultaneously that kind of, in a sense, are like masking some of the progress they've made, because like there was a long period of time when the kind of experience that Gutenberg was actually going to create was sort of up in the air, right? Like it was like, okay, we know we're going to have blocks, but like, what is it like to add a block? What is it like to reorder blocks? What is it like to edit the properties of blocks? Where should all those things be displayed? Where's the publish button? And all that, like, it's easy to forget like how many problems have been solved in Gutenberg now. And like now they're kind of bringing in what is the developer experience and then getting plugins on board with kind of using that and these other things. But it's like this is all possible now because like that core editing experience is there. And that now it's obvious what is a bug, right? Like because the behavior is sort of well understood. So we can tell when it's misbehaving.
The block theme that I mentioned earlier actually looks like blocks, squares all over the screen. So blocks doesn't mean everything's just going to be squares placed all over the screen now.
Sure.
That's a design choice.
Yeah.
There's like subtle nuances that keep showing up, just like little signals like this block is locked or this block is ready to be reusable. Just subtle little things like that. Like I was worried that like how are you going to identify things? And I think now we're getting a better view of like what the TinyMC probably should have been from the start. And like I'm very happy with it. Like as much crap as it's been getting in the press, I really think it's going to be better, man.
I've definitely seen, like obviously there's like a process for Jetpack to sort of like, bring like all of our features to be sort of as Gutenberg friendly as possible. And there's some really cool stuff that you start to see emerging where it's like, oh, like the social media icons and stuff. Like right now, the way that they're rendered is like they're kind of attached to the bottom of a post. So when a post is rendered, like we attach the buttons and you select which post types the buttons want to be on. But now that you have these reusable blocks and everything's a block in Gutenberg, you can sort of turn them into a block, and then suddenly you can create these templates where the social media icons can be above the post for this type of thing, or beside, or below, or all these different things. And so like you can start to sort of really have tons more flexibility, and they're not just going to always be below the post but above the comments.
And that's not necessarily a good thing, right? And here's why. Putting a design tool in the hands of a non-designer can end up with poor results, right? You can end up with bad UI, confusing and inconsistent pages throughout the theme. And it's nice to have that flexibility, but you want to be careful when those things get into the hand of somebody who doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because right now, like, I mean, anything that puts content below the post, it's always going to be below the post, right? Whereas in the future, a theme will be able to say, okay, I'm going to publish a reusable block as part of my theme that puts these features in the right place that fits with this theme. And so we're actually going to be able to sort of like do a lot of extra design work for you that actually makes it easier to have a good looking site rather than harder.
Totally get it. And I'm not saying that Gutenberg's a bad thing. Right? I think this is all good progress, right? You just want to be careful when you have design tools in the hands of non-designers.
Totally.
Actually, to kind of go off of that, not sure if you all have had a chance to see it or not, but Mel Choice gave a really great talk at LoopConf. I'll make sure it finds its way into the show notes about kind of the customizer in a post-Gutenberg world, making sure that your site looks good, what they're working on as far as the customizer goes in a time after Gutenberg, and working up to it into when Gutenberg actually ships in core. It's really insightful. It's really interesting, and it's worth the 45 minutes of your time to watch it, or 22 if you watched it 2x.
I don't know. I looking at how the editing interface within WordPress, like the classic editor as it will be called, I guess, would be having people use Metaboxes as a way to kind of construct various spots within a page is not the way to go. Like, we don't want to have like this very restrictive like, here's a bunch of boxes to fill in. I know, Steve, but have all these boxes to fill in, just it's
you clearly don't use Metaboxes enough, or you would know that like it's actually kind of a saving grace to know that everything can be in like this little thing that's in like a jQuery drop down. Like, it is so nice compared to like searching through content and finding shortcodes. Forget that, man. Like,
yeah. And actually, Jason, that's actually how we build a lot of our tools for our clients. But we use ACF so that we can
ACF Pro.
So that we can hide things away when they're not necessary. It's got nice conditional logic. So you're not presented with this long form. You're only presented with the fields that you need. So we take that into account when we're building those Metabox tools.
Yeah, and the reason why I brought that up is because the fact that what Cosper was saying, in that having these boxes that are kind of pre-designed, pre-built, instead of playing the game MASH or playing like, one of those, kind of filling in the little boxes, you don't have to do that. You can actually just say, yeah, exactly. Instead of doing all of that, or Mad Libs, if you want to go that route. Instead of having to do those sorts of things, you can say like, look, here's our little game of Mad Libs. We need you to fill in 4 different boxes in here. And then feel free to put that box either above or below the next one. And then you can kind of build out these blocks to make them look the way that they need to be. And I think what you're going to end up having to do, Steve, is something like that if you really want to embrace the Gutenberg way of doing things.
I love that you just explained. I love that you just explained it like a Mad Lib. Fill this out, and then you can just put it on the board wherever you want. Like that was amazing, man. I'm like bowing over here.
Don't give it to my kids, because every box is going to be filled in with fart.
I actually did a bunch of research recently into how people use shortcodes, just by looking through all the content that we have, and I found a couple of really interesting things just in terms of like site success and shortcodes. So like, people who use shortcodes on a sort of a regular basis tend to be much more successful WordPress users. Like, it's a little hard to know the exact causality, but basically, like, if you know how to use a video shortcode or a contact form shortcode or a WooCommerce product shortcode or whatever, you're like dramatically more likely to stick with WordPress. And the other thing I noticed, and it's because, right, like, your site is more successful, it's richer, it's whatever. But the other thing I discovered was that the shortcodes that people use by far the most are the ones that, for one reason or another, are sort of discoverable. So we're like, oh, like, tons of people are using like the contact form shortcode, but not this other like equally useful one. Like, what's going on there? And it's because the contact form shortcode had a button that we put in the editor, right?
Yeah.
And so that, for one thing, is like a big booster to sort of this Gutenberg idea of making all these features kind of discoverable, right? Like discovering the blocks in these different tabs, and here's my frequently used blocks, and here's my layout blocks versus my media blocks or whatever. And what was the other thing? Yeah, so it was sort of discoverability. Oh, and also like, the most common blocks that we used are sort of like media embedding, which is no surprise, right? Like videos and galleries and that sort of stuff. The second most popular blocks is layout blocks, right? So all these different block building kind of things that exist already that they sort of inject lots of different layouts. So now that Gutenberg is bringing sort of this layout stuff to the fore, we have much better discoverability, and so that's going to make people more successful, much more flexible layout, and all these things. So it's sort of, and these result in more successful sites and people sticking with WordPress. So all of that stuff that I was just doing, really just sort of out of interest to see, like, okay, which of our shortcodes are people really engaging with, led me to all these conclusions, like, oh, like Gutenberg's definitely going to increase success on WordPress.
I mean, are shortcodes even going to be necessary after Gutenberg, with everything becoming a block? Like at that point, add the contact form block, add the whatever block.
Exactly.
At some point, blocks or shortcodes are just going to become kind of the legacy thing that we still support.
Totally.
Just like a classic editor.
The blocks are the new shortcodes. It's just a way that you embed one feature into another. It's like a way that you embed something that WordPress does into a page, whether it's a tweet or a video or a two-column layout or anything. Like, all the shortcodes, can and should be turned into Gutenberg blocks.
We're switching over to long codes.
It's funny you say that, Steve, because like the shortcode idea, even though you're calling it we call it a shortcode, the number of parameters that are involved in this, like if you were to try to build a whole new page using shortcodes in Visual Composer, you would have to copy and paste all of those shortcodes that are being used in something like that to be able to construct a page. And at this point, you could essentially say that this is almost like using MySpace to like build out your site by copying a bunch of code that people have used to kind of make
that was low, bro. That was low. Like,
you don't remember all of the arcane little options for every shortcode?
Oh, well, yeah, you have to make a column and another column, and then you end up with shortcodes and shortcodes that are making shortcodes that then have like 9 different parameters that are tied to it.
Yo, dog, I heard you like shortcodes.
So the reason why I bring this up is because of the fact that to build out a replacement for shortcodes using Gutenberg is that you're going to essentially have to make a box for somebody to fill in something for every single different option that you normally would with a shortcode. So it's really easy to just put like all your shortcode logic on a page and say, here's my documentation, this parameter, this parameter, this parameter, this parameter, and you figure out which ones you want to use and put in, either true or false values or text or something like that. But, on the Gutenberg side of things, you're going to have to write code that supports every single one of those parameters to be able to fill that in. It could be color, so now you have a color picker you got to throw in there. It could be a date, so now you have to put a date picker in there. It could be all sorts of different things like that. So yeah, I mean,
and that's like my biggest fear is like you do that, and then like we see that with Visual Composer and Beaver Builder, where like your custom thing, it takes like a minute for that thing to render because it's got to process all that stuff. Like that's what I'm worried about, slowing down with the back end. But
I will say, like, just having done some research into like site rendering performance, like rendering the HTML, which often you can cache HTML anyway, right? But like rendering the HTML and even delivering the HTML to the browser is like way less than 1% of the time it takes to load a page. Far less than 1%. Like people who obsess over like the number of database queries it takes to like render a page or the amount of processing power are like basically splitting hairs. Like by far and away the biggest thing that slows stuff down is like the bulk of assets, how the assets are encoded, and then like the order in which they're injected into the page. Like everything else is just doesn't matter. Even the size of the HTML that comes out, it's like you could have the biggest page in the world and it's going to be like what? It's going to be like 200 kilobytes, and then your assets might be 5 megabytes.
Yeah, and once all that data is prepped, it's then pushed to the client, and then JavaScript has to sit there and do its thing. And at that point, not to say that we're, mining Bitcoin off of JavaScript or anything, but it could get to that point where, it's got to sit there and wait a couple minutes for all that stuff to get rendered out.
I actually just built that plugin for Plugin Palooza. It's called Gutenberg Bitcoin Mining for Gutenberg editor.
Sweet. Did you put the word blockchain in there? Because you'll win if you use the word blockchain.
Blockchain.
Synergy as well.
Synergy. No, I get what you're saying, Dan. I'm really curious to see how all this works, especially when it comes to like mobile devices.
Yeah,
we still cannot write a blog post using Beaver Builder or Gutenberg on a phone. Like that's something that can't happen. Yeah, this thing is with me all the time, and I would love to use this thing to actually write some content and actually make it.
Wait.
God, if
I have a very close friend of mine who just spent 2 months backpacking through New Zealand. And basically the entire way was attempting to write blog posts about his travels. He could not get down with either the mobile interface, just the web interface, or the WordPress app. Like he just wasn't really feeling it. He ended up writing his posts in day one, I think, and importing them over, which had their own like bugs and issues and everything else. Definitely the mobile like the mobile user experience could be just tons better, and I think that's one of those things that will really help push WordPress adoption. Like we're talking about the push to 30% to 40%. I think that that's one of the things we need to let people create content like wherever they are, and where most people are nowadays is their phone.
So what I do is I actually have like a Bluetooth speaker, or I plug in, and then I just use Google Keep. That way, like I don't have to use data, but I can still store the note on my phone, and then when I get to Wi-Fi, then it will push up to Google Keep. And then I can copy that over to WordPress, and then there's no markup from Google Keep. So that's all my blog content there. Like once I have the meat of the post, then I go in and just add my little short codes real quick, like inside of that. But doing all that on a mobile phone is easier, except trying to add like a gravity form shortcode or something like that, because like that interface still is a little janky. But like for the most part,
is that a technical term?
Janky is a technical term. It comes from JavaScript and finding it. No, so it's one of those things, Jason, where like it's very possible to do it. Just like the hardest part is like these little short codes, but that all can be done by like doing a quick edit on a desktop. And I know you're in front of your desktop some point during the day,
or you can send an email.
I absolutely am. But my wife, who has a laptop, it is sitting on my desk. It has been sitting on my desk for the better part of 3 weeks now. She doesn't use her laptop, and yet she has a blog and tries to write for it, but just finds that, I mean, you do all that with Google Keep. You shouldn't have to do that. You should actually have a native app that...
No. I do. I don't want to use the data. Like when I'm out and like I'm going to be blogging, like while I take like a 5-mile walk, I don't want to be using the data. So I use Google Keep because it'll store it locally on my phone. But like when I'm at home, like watching the baby and I'm blogging, I do open the WordPress app and connect to my site, and I do that. But like I usually use Google Keep just because it's easier to translate and it's a little quicker than the WordPress app.
And post by email is not the answer for this. Like, yes, you can post by email. Like your friend could have used post by email to just throw that in there, but a misspelling, the wrong photo gets posted in there. There's all sorts of things that can happen.
Well, not only that, but like you have to learn how to communicate with the device. So like there's a difference between the words R, like OUR, and R, like ARE,
and like a pirate going R.
Oh, definitely. but so like I have learned over the last year, just like when I'm talking to my phone, I know certain words, and like I can just slow down to say specific things. Like that's kind of an example, but then the phone picks it up, and then it makes editing so much easier.
This is one of the reasons why I think like we need to eventually push towards getting progressive web app technologies and service workers and stuff into core, because like basically the only way you can provide a good offline posting experience that is like native to WordPress is to use progressive web apps and like all of the caching and kind of like offline support and like all of the local data support that it has. And like when you look at, I'm much less worried about like WordPress becoming 30, 40, 50% of the web, which is all an admirable goal, than I am about like the number of people who avoid the web entirely, who are just, most of the world uses a sub $200 mobile phone as their primary way of accessing the internet, and they're all paying metered charges for access to the internet, and they're frequently offline or they're on slow networks. And if we don't have an answer for those people, they will not even use the web. Never mind WordPress. They will not use the web. It's just another app on their phone, and it's slow, and it costs them a lot of money, and they're going to stick with WhatsApp, and they're going to live completely inside that universe where it's like a super mobile friendly experience, and you can get your business online, and you can get customers, and you can make sales without ever using the web. And that scares the heck out of me, like both as a WordPress person, but also as like a human being who cares about the freedom to publish and not being beholden to these corporate entities who have to like make major concessions to whatever the government of the area is to kind of be able to operate there with their closed network. That's a little bit of a rant, but it's been on my mind a lot.
Luckily, there's a little bit of consistency in on the phones, though. There's consistency here. We have Android, we have iPhone. Oh, we have this shape, we have this shape, we have this shape, we have this shape. We have various versions of Android. I mean, that trying to get a good consistent thing to look at and say, okay, I can write this blog post using this type of technology and get it posted in there in a low bandwidth environment, and not making it so that you can still do edits, you can still do all those sorts of things. Yeah.
Actually, Dan completely locked in to what I was getting at with the you shouldn't have to is having a progressive web app, having the structure for progressive web apps, having that built into core is absolutely somewhere I see us needing to go to again push towards Matt's world domination goal effectively.
And did you see actually Weston Ruder from XWP opened some issues on core to add PWA support, so service worker support and web manifest support?
Wow,
absolutely.
So I might actually end up using my web manifest implementation from Jetpack since it already exists. But then getting the service worker support in is going to be tricky because of the way that service workers, you have one JavaScript file that controls all the service worker functionality for a given sort of domain and path. And so you have to do some pretty careful integration of like plugins injecting JavaScript into this one big file.
So speaking of XWP really quick, I wanted to give a shout out to Leo Postavoit, who spoke at at our meetup on Monday. Scared us all to death because he spent 2 hours talking about GDPR.
Oh, you're going to drop GDPR at the last 5 minutes of the episode? That's awesome.
We can talk about it next week, but I went home and really didn't sleep much because I felt like I've got a lot of work ahead of me with all the websites that we maintain.
Steve totally just clickbaited this thing. It's like number 7 GDPR will blow your mind.
I will say one thing about GDPR, which is like that Facebook scandal with like Cambridge Analytica and all the data getting out there, and how Facebook kind of
the breach. And I just used
the breach, which was like a breach by design. It's like, oh, it's not a bug, it's a feature. We just leak data everywhere. I mean, it really makes me much more sympathetic to the GDPR kind of idea of like people need to have some control over their data, and we as technologists know how hard it is to kind of control data once it's been copied from one place to another. But somewhere out there is a solution to this that like gives people kind of individual agency over how their data is used, because now we know what a problem it can be when it's abused.
But yes, Jason, I am teeing this up for next week because I think we need to talk about this topic.
So now what we need to do
is have Leo on.
Who are our experts in that field that we need to have come on. So yeah, definitely somebody like Leo or Leo.
Let's have Leo on. Let's have Leo on so he can scare us all to death.
I heard the WikiLeaks guy is available to do the podcast.
Julian Assange.
No, didn't they cut his internet off?
Yeah, they did. They turned his internet off again.
That's all the stuff via email right now.
I was gonna say he's not using Gutenberg. That's for damn sure. Like, because you can't post by email.
Got it. Yeah, we got it.
Oh man. All right, well, that's what I guess that's our topic for next week. Then we have now totally broken the whole idea of not having a topic before the show, and now we're definitely making that happen.
It's a new year. This is it's 2018 water cooler.
Would change everything up. Yeah. Awesome. All right, well, that's a show. That's a show. So thank you very much for hanging out with us and talking with us about. We talked about Gutenberg for an entire half an hour. That's awesome.
We did. We talked about mobile.
We talked about mobile too. Go over to our website at WPwatercooler.com. You can click on the links or subscribe. If you want to subscribe, WPwatercooler.com/subscribe is where you can do all those sorts of things. And if you have a topic idea, send an email to topics@WPwatercooler.com, and we'd be sure to
GDPR
pitch that thing. Yes, pitch that thing here on the show. I want to say thank you very much for Dan, Jason, Russ, Steve, and myself for coming on the show and talking. And we shall talk to y'all later.
Jason just thanked himself. Pat yourself on the back.
Y'all later. Bye-bye.